पैसा हर चीज़ में, और रिटर्न किस पे मिलता है? इन्वेस्टमेंट पे. सो इट्स अ सिंपल कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ what are you willing to invest to reap the return. If you're looking for easy money, this is not for you. Probably go and gamble in a casino. Probably that might make you a millionaire overnight, right? But when you're talking about your career,
Hello, everyone. Hope you have been enjoying our Future Career podcast series. We have so far spoken about law and the medical field, and we now hope to talk about business, engineering, fine arts, and the various roadmaps that are available within these domains. This particular podcast, we are going to take a look at supply chain. And we are pleased to introduce to you one of the experts in the supply chain field. He has been working in supply chain for the last 17 and a half years at Procter Gamble and is currently serving as the director of supply chain at Procter Gamble. He has worked nationally and internationally and accomplished great things, and he is keen to share his insights regarding the field. Assalamu alaikum, Huzaifa साहब, कैसे हैं आप? खैरियत से हैं?
Walaikum assalam. I'm really well. Thank you very much.
So I was looking over your bio, and one thing which seemed very remarkable to me is the fact that you started your career at Procter & Gamble back in 2006, and you have been with them since, and it's almost been close to 2 decades. And you've risen up the ranks and become director of supply chain. This is remarkable for me because आज जो Gen Z का जो culture है वो यही है कि 6 महीने साल वो काम करते हैं, and then they are always looking to switch, and they feel compelled to do this because somehow they have been trained to think that this is important in terms of career growth. But you have obviously found your way to success by staying at the same company. So how do you find your career progression so far?
So I'll answer a question in two parts. One, the latter part which you asked, how do I define my path with PNG? And then the first part where you asked about the Gen Z. I think my journey with Procter & Gamble has been amazing. Past 17 and a half years have been a roller coaster ride, if anything. And it's been a journey of personal and professional accomplishments, one after the other. So when I joined, I was just a fresh grad out of university, and then all my life phases and all my life changes have been, when I have been associated with PNG. The journey in itself has been very fulfilling, and a lot of times very challenging as well. But that's how life is. All right, coming back to your first question in terms of what would I want to say to the Gen Z, I think more than Gen Z, this is going to be relevant to, I think, even the millennials, right? And there is no right answer to whether you should stick to one company or whether you should be switching jobs to grow personally and professionally. So what you really need to be very clear about is, what do you personally want? What works for you? And I think when it comes to Gen Z, I think it's more about the millennials and the generation before, who need to understand that Gen Z is woke. They are well aware. They have visibility across platforms and across regions, and they have higher approach, which means that we need to communicate more between generations to understand what really works for them, right? And that's where it's going to be a two-way journey, where of course a young grad today coming out of university will have to understand and communicate well in terms of what are their personal needs, what would they define as success, because what may work for you might not work for me, right? इसलिए बहुत ज़रूरी है that this communication happens and a clear communication happens to set expectations throughout, right? That is one. The other thing is basically on the corporations in terms of how would they accommodate to these young people. And that's where it's more about understanding their needs and making sure that the work environment, the work in itself, is designed in a way that you keep these people motivated. Now, what has led me to stay with PNG for such a long time is that I was always challenged in terms of work, which means I always had something new to look forward to. I was given a lot of opportunities locally and internationally, on regional level and on global level, right, to perform. That's what kept me motivated. And the third thing is the way the company took care of me as an individual, and not just that, kept up to date with my personal milestones. Like I got married, I had kids, when I had to take care of my parents, what my need of the hour was, and then supporting me with the right career path. And that's what PNG has been able to provide me, and that's what has made me stay with the company. And it's still, having spent 17 and a half years, I still have a lot more to give to the company, a lot more to learn, and a lot more to do.
That is very interesting to note. So I'd like to sort of step back to the early days. I think we'd like to talk about your particular thought process back when you were a fresh graduate. So, what were the factors that sort of moved you towards PNG, and how did you particularly plan your career at that stage?
Honestly speaking, when I was starting off, I did not plan it, and it happened as an afterthought. But it was not that I was just going without anything, shooting in the dark. So a couple of myths that I would like to break is uh, people graduating from not the tier one universities, tier two or tier three, would not even apply to bigger corporations, thinking they are not going to get in. And that's something as a myth I would want to break, right? Because I never set the bar low for myself. And that's what each and everyone should do. One, don't set your expectations low, and don't keep your performance low. So if you have high expectation, then you'll have to go and deliver on, with that high, with those high stakes as well, right? So yeah, when the opportunity showed up, I grabbed it with both my hands. I did the best I could, and here I am today. Um, Now, other than that, what you need to also realize is that when you are young, a lot of times you're lost. And I think it's people like you, Mustafa, and thank you for doing this for a lot of young people in terms of guiding them and consulting them towards what they should be doing. I think that's where we all can help together. So having these platforms where students can come and get counseled, I think do really help.
Okay. So, if again, I would like to build a little bit upon that particular aspect of landing a job with PNG. Looking back, what do you feel were the factors that PNG considered as part of your skill set? Because you were a fresh graduate, so academically um, you had just completed your degree, but in terms of the skills that they probably saw in you, which made them feel that you would be a good fit for a company like PNG. So, what were those skill sets, and how do you feel you were able to develop those at that stage of your career?
So from the time when I was seeking jobs to the time where I'm headhunting, right? I think the philosophy of the company, or any company for that matter, would be, of course, that you hire the best for the job, right? Now, for one thing that I can tell students or young people who are looking for jobs, or for that matter, anybody who's looking for a job, any company, the first thing anybody would be looking for is uh, integrity. Second thing the company would be looking for is it the right fit for the company in terms of whether you can deliver the performance at your peak which the company expects, right? uh, Other than that, can you manage people? How do you manage your stakeholders? These are a few things that you would really want to demonstrate during your tests and interviews, and throughout basically your uh, work as well, which would really help you make it through.
In your early years, and as you mentioned a little while earlier, you were always challenged. So, how big of a factor was the effort that you were putting in, the performance that you were putting in, uh, that helped with the progress of your career?
So look, there is no alternate to hard work, right? Technical mastery will take you places, and that's what you should always strive for in anything that you do, especially when you're starting your career. Hard work in making sure that you're building the right skills, hard work in making sure that you show up and deliver on your commitments, hard work in making sure that you are uh, putting up an effort to sharpening the saw and learning as you grow. I think that will be a consistent effort throughout, right? And more so when you're starting your career. Because as I said, technical mastery is something which you will need across every platform you work on or everything that you do. As you start, I think you will be starting off probably as a supervisor or something, right? Or as a, let's say, very initial starting position. You will need to be the best at what you do. As you grow, you will need to sharpen the saw and make sure that you are best at managing people, managing big organizations, managing financials, right? This will require hard work and an ongoing effort in yourself, and that's going to be the investment that you make in yourself. So, yeah, hard work has no alternative. You will have to work hard across and throughout.
Okay. So I'm interested in talking about the particular area of work that you do, supply chain, and we'll come to that. But as you just mentioned, that managing people is a core component of the work that you do and also feeds into the progress that you make at a company like PNG. So, um, how much does it mean to you in terms of managing your people correctly towards achieving the desired goals? How important is it as part of your daily routine?
So, I don't have to do anything with my own hands, right? At this stage, it's basically my team who does the work, right? All I have to do is manage their careers. All I have to do is make sure that I put the right person for the right job. I have to make sure that I provide an environment with my leadership team to everyone where they can learn and they can grow and make sure that they can perform at their peak. What my job is today to make sure that decision is faster, decision is something which is helping the business, it's fair, and make sure that's a conducive environment for everybody. So that's what my job is, right? Because leading the supply chain for any company, or for that matter, leading any function, right, would not mean that you are doing the work with your own hands. As you grow in any company or in any function, or for that matter, anywhere, I think the core would be in terms of how would you manage your team and your people, how would you empower them, and by empowering you also drive the right accountability end to end, and foster the right culture to enable personal and professional growth for your people.
Okay. I would like to now move the discussion towards the main aspect of our talk today, and that is a career in supply chain. So, we would like to inform our audience in regards to what they should expect to achieve if they pursue a career in supply chain. What are the prospects for them in terms of the national scope of work? And then later on, we would also like to talk about the international scope of work. So, if you were to advise a particular student who's just completed his A levels or intermediate and is looking to start a degree program, a bachelor degree program, and would want to see if supply chain is the right fit for him or her, what would your advice be to that person?
So supply chain is a very vast field which inculcates numerous amounts of uh, areas within the business. So, for example, manufacturing, quality assurance, procurement. planning, all of that comes under supply chain. And then if you look at it, every area of business is being touched by supply chain. When you look at the financial books of any company, right, every deliverable for that company, some way or the other, supply chain would be touching. From sales down to the profit, managing the cost, delivering cash, making sure your balance sheet and cash flow statements and P&L are all being impacted by supply chain. So it's a vast supply chain, and it's more about where your passion lies. If you like operations, there are a very very operational roles within supply chain. If you like more commercial aspects, there are certain roles that are commercial focused, right? Demand planning, supply planning, and engaging into other procurement aspects are more commercial, right? Also, when it comes down to logistics management, within logistics there are different areas: managing downstream logistics with the customers and distributors, managing upstream logistics with vendors and suppliers, right? So it's a vast field. You need to identify what your passion is, what you interests you. Are you an analytical person? Are you an operational person? Are you an execution person? Would you like to get into very technical fields like R&D and quality assurances, right? You identify what your strengths are, and then you shape your career accordingly, right? So supply chain would offer all of this to anybody, from engineers to data scientists to somebody who is from IT background to somebody who is doing business degrees, or somebody from who has a commerce background. So there's everything for everybody out there,
Okay.
right? It all depends on you define your passion points, you define your strengths, and then shape up your career accordingly, and then get
Okay.
counsel accordingly as well. Yeah.
Okay, so that is something that is very intriguing. You mentioned that various disciplines can sort of channel towards a career in supply chain. Um, so, for a student who has, let's say, decided that he would like to pursue a business degree, so he's already committed himself to that, and is now in the process of exploring his roadmap, his career roadmap. What kind of activities or work placements, or what kind of um, opportunities should he seek during his studies in order to learn more, in order to discover more about his potential career roadmap that will enable him to be a little better prepared by the time that he or she graduates?
There are two things that really helped me find out my passion, and I'm going to talk about those. Uh, One is staying in touch with the people from the industry. Second thing is, and this is one of the most underrated ones, but this really helped me, leveraging your university projects in getting to know the details of what you're doing, and that's where you're going to find your long-term passion points. I never knew about what supply chain is. I never knew. Yes, I would have heard about logistics management. I would have heard about procurement and sourcing, that yes, companies do have these departments. Going through the entire BBA degree, I went through a few subjects as well. But when I studied supply chain management as a course, I got intrigued. And more so, of course, it was a lot to do with the people who supported me in that. A lot of credit to my instructor and my teacher over there. But then when I did projects related to supply chain, and then when I studied more courses related to supply chain, is where I found out that this is what my passion point is. So though my bachelor's, the BBI I did, my majors were in marketing, but then I found out during my supply chain courses that this is what I want to pursue my career in. And that's where, when the opportunity in PNG popped up in a supply chain department, I applied, I got through, and that's where I've enjoyed my career throughout. And I think the biggest part on this was when I was doing projects, studying supply chains for local companies, studying supply chains and doing case studies for international companies, is where I found out that this is a vast field, which is where I can be uh, I can grow, I can learn, and I can leverage my strengths. Data analytics is something which I love doing since I was a student, and that's where this is what I where I saw that I think the most data analytics is in supply chain. The amount of data we have to process is just enormous. Then when I studied the supply chain for local and international companies, I found out there is so much value that we can add. And then the systems part of it, right? I was very much intrigued by how this SAP is designed, how it works, and how the ERPs impact performances of companies. All of these combined really made up my mind in terms of what I want to pursue, right? And despite majoring in marketing, I end up pursuing my career in supply chain, and I've loved every bit of it. I wouldn't want to change a bit.
Okay. So I think in terms of the academic experience, I think that's the point you're making, that you were able to obviously understand where things were headed in terms of your career pathway. What is your opinion in terms of internships? Students do take up internships. Some universities have mandated that students must take up internships. But I think it is an opportunity that is not as well utilized as it could be. So, what are your thoughts on that? How effective can an internship be in terms of learning within the actual environment? And how should students approach it? Because they tend to just go to an internship with the understanding that it's a formality that they have to complete, and they just spend their 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and be done with it. So, since you've now trained a lot of people yourself, you've had staff that has been fresh graduates as well. What would your advice be to potential interns on how they should effectively present themselves at the 6 week or the 4 week internship in order to maximize their learning and also take full value in terms of understanding what the business is about?
On this, I would say it's again going to be a two-way thing. Today, when I talk to students who come to me for counseling, who have done 2 to 3 internships throughout their like first 2 to 3 years, and they end up telling me that their internship was more of a photocopying job. And that's where the onus lies on the corporations as well. And this is more towards basically more of the local companies that we need to really refine our internship processes. Because this is one way for us to groom the students at early age and then also identify that raw talent that we would want to groom later on in our organization. It's a very good way of scouting the best talent out from the universities. So the first onus is on the corporations to make the internships meaningful, right? Because the way we do is that we give actual business projects to our interns. And I think that's how it should be. So all big corporations you will see over here, even in Pakistan, they would be giving actual business projects to their interns so that they know what value they can bring and what value they can add to the business, right? And that's going to be very important. On the other side, when you look at it from the other lens of the students, I think that's where leverage more of these opportunities and just don't get them as a checkmark exercise to get your degree, but leverage these to get first-hand experience from the market that will define whether you want to pursue a specific field, whether you like working into it, because studying something, being passionate about something, but when you get into it, when you get your hands dirty with it, right, is where you get to know and test the waters whether this is the right thing for you or not. So it's important for them to give the 100% and treat it like that as well, and not treat it as a check mark exercise. Other than that, a lot of people don't realize that these internships are an opportunity to prepare them for interviews, for future jobs. Because when you are being interviewed, what do you talk about? You never talk about your grades you got in school and university. You talk about your experiences as a student and as an intern or any freelance work that you have done. And these add up to your resume. These add up to your experiences that you can talk about in your interviews. So I think that's how the student should look at it.
So, you mentioned a few things that a corporation would look in a particular candidate. So I'll just like to briefly cover that as well. So, for instance, if we were to talk about PNG or someone such as yourself hiring at a fresh graduate level, what kind of things would you particularly be looking for in a fresh graduate in order to convince yourself that this is the person that you would like to bring on board?
So I will not be very specific about a specific company, but I think a recruiter, no matter what company it is, the first thing would be that recruiter would be looking at is, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be the integrity. Because you can get the best individual from the market, but the integrity is not there. I think that's not the right individual for your company. Period. So integrity is going to be always the base, because you are trusting somebody with your business, with your money, and hence integrity becomes the base. Then, once you are set that yes, we have the right fit in terms of integrity, basically, then you look into what is what are the key relevant experiences that the individual has had, right? And it's not necessarily your grades in your school or university. It's where, as I mentioned, the experiences in your internship come in play, how you handle the projects in your university, how you handle any specific personal situation that you might have gone through, right? So I've had interviews where we did not talk about any of their work experiences at all. We talked about how a specific personal situation strengthened that individual, what did that individual do to overcome that personal situation, right? And that showed me that the individual has the resolution and that grit to overcome challenges, right? That individual has, the individual has what it takes to operate in very tough circumstances. And then when everything is going wrong, how does that individual motivate himself or herself, and then how does that individual come out of that situation? So I think that's what I usually do with my interviews.
And it is something that I feel is also very important. And it almost seems cliche when we talk about having soft skills as part of your CV or your resume. But I tend to tell a lot of students that they need to go beyond their classroom instruction. They need to get involved even at the university level, develop themselves as individuals, because I think that is really what, as you said, good companies would like to invest in. They would like to invest in the individual primarily, because, to be honest, as a fresh graduate, you have the academic knowledge, but you have no practical experience to offer. And so I think that is something that has to be really worked towards. And I think what really sets good universities apart from the average is the ability to uh, motivate students to go beyond the classroom in terms of their learning, in terms of developing themselves. And I think this is a good point to also talk about uh, how you feel international experience can also contribute towards the effectiveness in working. Because as part of what we do, we also counsel students in terms of their academic and career prospects internationally around the world. And how much do you feel does it help to gain international exposure, and how effective is it in terms of practicing or working in Pakistan?
So myself having that experience in terms of getting the first few years working in Pakistan, and then having an opportunity to work in a couple of other places and then coming back, I think it made a huge difference in terms of my capabilities, my approach to work, and it groomed me a lot. And I think if I speak from my personal example, what really helped me was how to manage people with multicultural backgrounds, how to be sensitive with what people require, how to deal with people with multilingual, backgrounds. That's the kind of exposure that really helps you. When you are growing in a specific culture, you take a lot of things for granted. When you start working with people with a homogeneous background in terms of culture, right? Of course, everybody would have their own uh, experiences, but it's a homogeneous culture. I mean, if you're working and growing in the same environment, but when you've experienced that multicultural aspect, it really helps you broaden your horizon, broaden your thinking, and makes you think on aspects which you would have never done otherwise. How people react to different situations, how different cultures value different things, helps you groom as an individual, and not just that, helps you become a better leader for your people, right? Because when you've grown in a specific environment, you, as I said, you might have certain biases, you might have certain, uh, you know, cliches in your mind, which then gets help addressed when you've worked with a multicultural team. So that's one. The other aspect of it is that uh, when you've worked in a different environment with different uh, dynamics, you get to learn more in terms of your customers. You get to learn more in terms of your upstream supply chain and upstream stakeholders for that matter. And you also get to acquire different skill set that you can reapply locally, right? Because not necessarily you would have the same scale of business locally and internationally. So having an international exposure would give you a bigger scale. Having operated on a bigger scale would give you a lot more opportunities for reapplication on a local scale. And I think that's kind of, very important. Builds your technical mastery and, of course, your people management both.
Okay. So if someone were to invest their careers in supply chain, what would be the financial value that they would be able to gain from it?
देखें, पैसा तो हर चीज़ में है, ठीक है? गार्डनिंग से लेके, ऑटो मैकेनिक से लेके, जहाज़ बनाने तक, पैसा हर चीज़ में है। और रिटर्न किस पे मिलता है? इन्वेस्टमेंट पे। So it's a simple concept of what are you willing to invest to reap the return. If you're looking for easy money, this is not for you. Probably go and gamble in a casino. Probably that might make you a millionaire overnight, right? But when you're talking about your career, it's not a gamble. It's about what you are willing to invest. And as I said, there is no alternate to hard work. So whatever field you will choose, because you will see somebody who has pursued marketing, has done wonders, have created, different campaigns that have done really well, and they grow significantly. Similarly, you would see people not growing. And in the same way, within supply chain as well, you will see people who have done really very well, right? But then you have to look at what investment did they make, what career choices did they make, right? And not necessarily their choices would work for you as well. So you really have to define what works for you. You will have to define your own path, and at some point in time, you'll also have to go with the flow. Nobody can give you a prescription of what your career will look like and how will you get rich. Everybody is going to have their own path to success, because every career is unique, every individual is unique, and you will have to define your path. You'll have to have, of course, a goal set, but that path is, as you tread that path, is how you're going to discover what that journey looks like, right? uh, in supply chain itself, I think, what I mean, as I said, it's a vast field. You choose what your passion points are, start from there, and then tread the journey as it occurs, right? And but there's no formula for me to tell you, do this and you're a millionaire guaranteed. No.
I would sort of add, I think you did give the formula in terms of putting in the right effort, the putting in the time, putting in the focus, the dedication. And I think that is really the recipe for success. And it's important because there is such an overload of information in terms of various careers being so lucrative that I think the young generation today is getting a little confused, and they feel compelled that they need to do something and do it very urgently in order to make money very quickly. And I think you've identified it very clearly. The time needs to be put in, and that's very, very important. So I would like you to volunteer any aspect of supply chain, the career roadmap that we haven't specifically yet touched upon, that you feel is very relevant and very important for uh, budding graduate or even an O-level, A-level student to consider in terms of looking at this particular career for their own future.
So I'll give you my career path. And as I said, no career path is going to be, same. Everybody will have their own paths. So when I graduated, joined as a demand planner, right? And the first time I saw this uh, job opening, I was not even clear what that means because the job title was demand forecaster, right? And I said, man, am I going to join a med department to do some, you know, weather forecasting, or what? What does this even mean? Uh, but then I looked it up. I saw, okay, this is something, and I said, man, how am I going to do this? While I love analytics, but how am I going to predict what the company is going to do on the first day of my job? Because that's what I'm joining into. And I said, interesting. Let's see. I joined, I learned, and then I moved in different areas. So I did started as a demand planner, then took up supply planning as well. So did market planning overall. Then took a 360, 180 degree, and went into logistics altogether, which was complete execution from pure planning in terms of what's going to happen 2 years from now, 2 3 months, from 3 months to 2 years from now, down to what's going to happen in the next 2 hours, was a warehouse coordinator job, right? So from forecasting down to execution. Then I did multiple roles in planning and logistics, and then went into project management, where I tested myself in terms of, if I'm time bound with very high stakes, will I be able to deliver with a lot of stakeholders, right? And that led me towards my growth. That led towards my growth and led towards an international exposure assignment, right? And from there, it led to multiple international assignments, after which I got back over here and started leading the supply chain locally. So I had a lot of experimentation throughout. I had no clue what I'm going to do. And it was me discovering myself and my career as I go. So that's what has really worked for me. So don't bash yourself too much upon I'm not clear, because when you're a student, you'll have tons of thoughts on what should you actually pursue. I mean, and start from when you're electing your subjects in O levels. Should I pursue commerce? Should I pursue engineering? Should I pursue medical? What should I do? All right. I, Today we are at a stage where my son is at this stage of deciding his courses in the next year. And we have talked about from aeronautical engineering to law to medical to engineering to commerce. We've talked about everything. And it's okay to be confused. Nobody has a prescription for you to be handed and say, okay, do this and you'll be successful. Right? So it's more about having the conversation with your support group and your peers to see, okay, I'll take this leap of faith and then go from there. And it's never about, okay, I've chosen a path for myself, which is supply chain, and then I'm going to dive in supply chain. No, you can change anytime you want. And there have been people, there have been CEOs. So our ex CEO of P&G started in supply chain, went into marketing, and then went into general management and became the CEO, right? And you will see a lot of such examples across corporations locally and globally, right? So it's okay to be confused, it's okay to talk it out, and it's okay to discover yourself as you go.
Okay. So thank you so much, Mr. Huzaifa, for your thoughts today. I think it was very interesting in terms of how you had a take on a career roadmap, sharing your personal experiences, not having figured things out and figuring them out on the way. And I think that's very important. But I think the key takeaway is to back yourself, to really be successful in and commit yourself and give the time. You have to do the time, you have to make the effort. And I think that is something I continue to reinforce to the students that I meet as well. And it's been a pleasure that you've sort of helped us with the same advice. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa, for having me over here. It was a pleasure talking to you.